Hi everyone, welcome to this new episode. Today we'll see the auto-tuning. The auto-tuning works with a very nice algorithm that is using a bit of AI and machine learning to analyze your data, to mix them properly, and to find the best sweet spot for your suspension. Here, for example, you can first of all see that we are dividing the auto-tuning between fork and shock, so basically the front and the rear. Below we have 6 different variables: the dynamic sag, the bottom out, the high-speed compression, the low-speed compression, the high-speed rebound, and the low-speed rebound. To use the auto-tuning, you must start by setting up the parameters on the left. You should start with the discipline, gravity in this case. It can be also cross-country, motocross, and so on. Once you're done with the discipline, you can then select the rider level. In general, a beginner rider is a rider that is already able to ride a mountain bike, but is not very expert, and the speed is overly slow. An intermediate rider is a rider that is able to do almost everything on a bike, while an advanced rider is someone who is, in general, racing, very fast-paced, and with a lot of experience, so no issues with any kind of jumps or technical sections. The terrain can be smooth, so in general, a track characterized maybe by soil and not a lot of rocks or roots, or the terrain can be rough if characterized by a lot of obstacles, rocks, and so on. Just to make an example with pretty known bike parks. Okay, if you go to Whistler in the A-line, the terrain will be smooth. For example, if we are going to ride the Val di Sole World Cup track, it will be rough. Perfect, so now that we have gravity, advanced, and rough, we click the Tune button and we receive the suggestions. All of these suggestions are characterized by 3 dots. The green dot means you are inside the recommended range. The red dot means you are very far from the recommended range, so likely you need to adjust a lot your suspension in order to reach the green. And the orange one means you are pretty close to the recommended range, so you don't need to do crazy changes to reach the green range. Also, another thing, the auto-tuning is considering the whole run, so be aware that to make it work okay, you need to consider the whole run without any stops in it. And then you should also consider putting the software in wheel mode, because if the software is not running in wheel, it's possible that for the rear you are referring to the rear suspension, and the shock, as we know, is moving way slower due to the leverage ratio. Therefore, the auto-tuning will be, for example, all red, just because we are referring to the wrong thing. So remember to refer always to wheel. To help the user, the software will automatically switch to wheel when running the auto-tuning. But if you manually click on suspension later, okay, and then you click the button tune again, and now you can see the values will not be correctly parsed, just because now we are referring to the suspension and not to the rear wheel. So go again, set the software to wheel and click Tune in order to have the correct suggestions. Also, now we have a selection active in the stack view, so if you want to refer just to a specific portion of the track, you can click the button Synchronize with Selection, and by synchronizing with the selection, you can also try to click this button in order to see the current selection on the map. In this case, we saw that just this dot moved. Here, if you want to remove the selection again, you can simply click again on the Synchronize with Selection button. Let's see now how to interpret the dots and change the setup accordingly. So for example, now we will try to change the rider level to intermediate. Okay. Now we have, for the dynamic sag, the orange color. So in this case, the suggestion of the auto-tuning is reduce air/spring. Our goal here will be to increase the amount of dynamic sag, so we need to reduce the air, or the spring of our suspension slightly, because we are orange, while here on the shock, we need to reduce the air, or the spring a bit more, because red. Then for the bottom out, for example, in both cases we have to reduce the resistance, just because the suspension is not very exploited in the full travel. About the compression. The compression high speed is green, so it's already inside the range. Technically, you should not touch anything. The compression low speed is pretty close to perfection, and here, for example, the suggestion is reduce damping. Reduce damping means we want to make the suspension faster, so we need to open the damping in order to make the suspension move faster. Then, speaking about the rebound, we have the rebound high speed. The suggestion here is increase speed. So for example, in this case, we need to open the rebound in order to achieve higher rebound velocities for both the fork and the shock. In this case, the low-speed rebound suggestion is to slightly open the rebound for the fork and open more the rebound for the shock. So yeah, as you can see from this video, the auto-tuning is a very easy to use tool suitable for every rider. It's available also in the smartphone app for trackside use and thank you very much for your attention.